For this module's mini project, the first thing we want to do is pick a color, then find 6 public domain photographs of that color that we'll use to build a video sequence. I've chosen yellow, and I'm going to search Pixabay for yellow images. There's many to choose from, but I think I'm going to start by downloading this one. All I need to do, because it's a public domain image, is to click a free download. I want to choose an image size that is at least 1920 by 1080. This is slightly larger than that because it's not quite HD format, but this is at least larger than 1920 by 1080, so I want to click download, and it downloads the image for me. Then I'll proceed to find 5 more images. And once I've found those images, I'm going to take them all into Photoshop and edit them all to exactly the same size. I've downloaded my yellow images, and now I'm going to open them in Photoshop and crop them. The first one I picked has just a little bit of yellow because I'm going to start with just a small amount of yellow and work to a lot of yellow. I'm actually building a sequence of some sort. You might choose to increase saturation, you might choose to increase the amount of yellow, you might work the other way and decrease the amount of yellow in the different images. But I'm going to start this way. So the first thing I need to do is I need to crop it to the right size, right aspect ratio, and then I need to resize it so that it is full HD. I've set my style for my marquee to fixed ratio of 16 by 9, that's the HD aspect ratio. And I'm going to just drag out that full frame and see if that's something I want to use. And that looks a little bit big to me. I would like to get this little yellow light somewhere along the rule of thirds. So I'm going to reset this, and I'm going to make my image something about like that. Now it's still a 16 by 9 ratio. And I'm going to then crop it. Now I need to make sure that this is 1920 by 1080. So I'm going to take my image here and I'm going to resize it first off to 72 pixels per inch. That's our resolution that we want for video. And then I'm going to choose 1920, and notice it's by 1080. And this is now a full HD image. And I'll just save this, and then I'll do that the same to all the other images. I'm not actually going to save, I'm going to export as, because when I do export instead of save as, I get to see the size the image is going to be. And 1.2 megabytes over here is just a little bit too much, so I'm going to choose JPEG, but I'm going to reduce the resolution. If I reduce it to 80%, I'm about 600K. I'm going to reduce this to 70, because I think that will work for all of the other images that I've got. So I'm just around 400K here, and I'll export that now and save all the images pretty much the same way. I've chosen all my images, and now I'm going to open Premiere and create a new project. I'm going to call this Yellow, and I'm going to set it in my Yellow folder on my hard drive. And I'm just going to leave the defaults. I'm going to leave it for timecode, audio samples, and HD. This is really generally all you're going to have to do this quarter. So I'll say OK. And up comes the Premiere main interface. First thing I want to do for my project Yellow is to import all of the images that I've already cropped and resized in Photoshop. And all I need to do is either come up to File, Import, or because I'm on a Mac, I can use Command I. You can also use Control I on a PC. So I'll import all my images. I've numbered them in the order I think I'd like them. So I'll select all of those images and click Import. All those images will come down here to the media browser. All I need to do to put them into the timeline is drag them. I can drag them one at a time, and they'll show up over here in the timeline, or I can drag multiple files at the same time. The important thing to realize is that the first image, the first still, the first video that you put into the timeline will set the resolution for your entire video. So because I know all of these are 1920, that is full HD resolution, they'll all now be 1920 by 1080 in the finished video. So you want to be very careful that everything that you are using has either the same resolution or that you set your first image to be the resolution that you want your final video to be. So I've got this first video in. I'm now going to select all of the rest of them in order, and I'll just drag them over here, and I can then snap it to the end of the last image I dragged in. And notice that they're all now in video channel 1. I can set the timeline resolution here so that I can see all of my images, and you can see that they come out here to about, this is probably 30 seconds. The reason is that each image that comes in is the default length of 5 seconds long. So 5 times 6 should be about 30. So that should be that there. However, we want our video to be 15 seconds long. Now I can look at this right now. I can see it in my main video window by simply picking up the scroll bar and rolling through manually. I can see all the images that I've got. Now that I've looked at this, I'm thinking I don't like the order that these last ones are in, so I'm going to change the order. I could delete them both and then bring them in separately again. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up this one, move it up out of the way. I'm going to move what I thought was going to be number 6 into the 5th position, and the 5th one to the end position. Now what you should know is that you're going to see whatever is on top of this entire list of videos. I've got video channel 1, video channel 2, video channel 3. If I put 5 on top of 6, I'm only going to see 5. I'm going to move this off just a little bit. You can see it goes from this one down here to seeing this one. So I want to make sure that I know who's on top of whom here. All right, so now that I've got this, my next task is to set these up at some length. And I could assume 15 divided by 6 is 2.5 seconds each. And I could set that time on these, but I can also just do it visually. So what I might just do is I might pick up the end of this, and notice what I've got is I've got the selection tool here from my toolbar, and I can select it, or I can just simply grab the end of it. I've got this little arrow pointing to the left, and I'll grab the end of it and I'll move it to the left. And I can see that I'm changing the duration. On the left-hand side, you can see the time code for how long I've changed it. That's how much I've changed it by. And on the right-hand side, you can see the time code that tells me how long it is. So I'm going to set this to, well, it says it's 216, 217. That's pretty close for right now. And then I'm going to drag the yellow one over, and I'm going to do the same thing to it. I'm going to grab its end. I'm going to move it so you can see on the right-hand side, it's going to be somewhere around about 215. Get it somewhere like about that. And I can drag the next one over and keep on doing the same sort of thing until I'm done. Then I can grab the end of this image and move it. Now I have my timeline scroll bar set here, and wherever I place it, I can actually have the end of the image snap to wherever the scroll bar is. Now that I've done that, I could move this to the next time slot and move this one on down and then snap this to it. And I can continue to do that for the rest of these images. Now we don't have very many images to do that to, but as we get much longer, it becomes more time consuming to edit all of the images and then drag them on down. So what we can do is I'm going to hold down my control key, and I'm going to click in this blank space right here, and it will tell me I can ripple delete. When I do a ripple delete, it will delete this space, and it'll move everything to the right of that space to the left. So I can move everything down. I only have two here to move down, but if it was a longer video, I can use ripple delete to save me a lot of time. So I'm going to click ripple delete. They move all on down. I'm going to just guess where this one goes, somewhere along about there. I'm going to manually move that one down. And now I want to make sure this comes in at exactly 15. So I'm going to move my scroll bar, and you can see over on the left-hand side, right over here, that it's telling me exactly what time I'm at. So I'm at 10 seconds and 26 frames. So I'm going to move this exactly to 15, and then I'm going to snap to the end. And now I know my video is exactly 15 seconds long. Now this looks a little short, and maybe I don't want that one to be short. Maybe I want this one to be just in there a little bit. So I'll move that down a little bit, and I'll stretch this out. So now let's take a look at the video. And to play the video, all I need to do is move my scroll bar to where I want it to start. I'm going to start at the very beginning. And then I can either press play up here, or I can hit the space bar. And you can see the playback head is moving. You can also see it moving here. And when it comes to the end of the video, it will stop. And if I want it to start again, I don't need to move the playback head. I can just press the space bar once again, and it'll start all over. That is all you really need to do to assemble your images. In the next module, we're going to come up over here and look at our effects controls to see what kind of transforms we can add to our images. So the last thing we need to do is we need to export this as a video. And to do that, I come up to File, Export, Media. When I click on that, I'm going to get the Export Settings dialog. And you can see this is where the playback head was already set. You can see the playback head over here. I can scroll through and see what my video is going to look like if I want. I'm going to set my source range to the sequence in and out, or I can set it to the entire sequence if I'm not sure if I set the in and out. And then what I want to do is I want to give it some sort of a name over here. It says output name. I'm going to click on this blue yellow light because that's the name of my first image. Come down over here to my yellow folder, and I'm just going to call this Yellow Movie. And notice it's an MP4. I'm in the same folder that I have all my images in because that's a good way to keep everything straight. Want to make sure I'm exporting video and audio. Those are on by default. And then the easiest thing to do is not to fool with any of these things down here yet, but to come up over here to Preset and pick something. So let's suppose I want to upload this to Vimeo. So this is a Vimeo default, 1080p, that's standard HD. If I wanted to upload this to YouTube, I could come over here to YouTube, 1080p. I'm going to upload to Vimeo because I happen to like Vimeo. I think it's very easy to upload the images to. So I select that. It sets everything I need. Notice here that it's 1920 by 1080 because that was the resolution of the first image. I can scroll down and look at different kinds of things here. It's going to tell me what resolution it's going to set this at. So it's going to have a target bit rate. That means how many pixels per second it's going to render of 16 megabits per second to 20 at max. I don't really care because this is so short, but for longer videos, we're going to want to change these. So I'm going to change these right now. I'm going to click on this. I'm going to change this to 8. I'm going to change this to 10. You can either leave yours default or you can change that. I can also do a more complex compression by using variable bit rate, VBR, variable bit rate, 2 passes. We'll just leave it at the default 1 pass for the moment. And then all I need to do to make this happen is to click Export. So I know where it's going to go. I know there's going to be the entire sequence. I know it's 8 megabits per second with a max of 10, and it's VBR 1 pass. And as soon as it's done, it will pop back to the main interface so you don't have to wonder whether you've completed it or not. Let's take a look at it. Here's the completed MP4 video. I'm running it in QuickTime, and I'm just going to play it by hitting the play button. You can see the playback head moving here. And there are all of my images in the order that I've created them.